Today, what we covered was getting resistance on a sales call or in a sales process. And we talk about when it comes up, but also a couple of different ways to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, the call it took us a moment to find where we were going to go, and then where we ended up landing and staying was resistance is going to come up in sales interactions, but there are different types of resistance. There are different motives for resistance. There's different degrees of movability. And we both agreed that it should be understood as a start point. What are we actually dealing with here? And then if we decide we're going to try and move it, it should be done in a collaborative work with them sort of manner, as opposed to bulldoze through and probably trigger fight or flight, which we never, ever want to do on a sales call. So we got pretty granular about how to handle situations like that and what we've done with some examples.
And I think the only guarantee on the back of this is that you will hit resistance. It's a natural part of the process, and
Yes.
And you need to flow with it. But
Yep.
hopefully you enjoy, and we will see you on the next one.
Just by the way, James, there is a section on by the weighing as well. It could really just be resistance. I mean, do you crumble at the first sign of resistance? If it doesn't all go your way or open up right away, do you crumble? And I guess what criteria one should use to know when to keep exploring / pushing in a non-pushy salesy way, you know what I mean, but trying to make something happen, or when you should read the room in the sense of there's nothing here, or there's nothing here that I'm prepared to go on the journey for. I think that's a little different. I think we can talk about that.
I like that, because then that applies to both remote sales calls as well as any kind of sales cycle, as in you're going to hit resistance. It's not even
Sure. I think for me, I mean, you got to read the room, of course. You've always got to be reading the room, and I think a lot of salespeople are really bad at reading the room. They're so fixated on their agenda, they're so fixated on getting the sale, crushing whatever comes in front of them, that they don't read the room. They don't pick up the signs, or the lack of. They don't pick up the negative signs, or they don't pick up the lack of positive signs, and they just keep plowing ahead, and it's a complete waste of time, and very jarring for the other person. So you've always got to be reading the room. But just because somebody's start point is X doesn't mean they're still there in a couple of moments' time. You often can move them. You can move them by having them feel something they didn't feel before, having them see or be aware of something they weren't aware of before, having them reconsider something they thought they had the conclusion to, or were seeing it right. And before you know it, everything changes. Like, just to pick a really crude example, if you were to say to me, do you want to come train jiu-jitsu with me tonight? I'd say, no, I haven't trained jiu-jitsu in about 6 or 7 years. And in that 6 or 7 years, you've got really good. I know you're going to, give me a really bad time. And then you're like, what if I were to tell you that, I don't know, 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗄𝗏, who's I don't know if he still is considered to be, but he was considered to be the Kelly Slater of jiu-jitsu 10 or so years ago when I was really into it. 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗃 is going to be there tonight, and he specifically wants middle-aged dads to come. Oh, well, when you put it that way, consider me there. So my initial start point was no. New information was then presented on the back of that. I reconsidered. You just turned a no into a yes in like one move. We've often got angles like that we can play. That's an example of new information, but sometimes it's reconsidering or re-looking at or reimagining or reinterpreting something that's already there, and you can come to a very different conclusion when you do that, and we can help them do that. So, a non-high level salesperson on getting initial resistance may either fold and walk away, or try and plow through brute force.
So
Probably neither's going to work.
I think there's a distinction between flowing with it and fighting against it. Because flowing with it is just like, cool, completely understand.
Yes.
However, or what if I were to?
Well,
whereas
in that,
fighting against it would just be like, wait, I thought you said you wanted to.
Exactly. In that mock example we just made a moment ago, when I said no, I made you I was you for a second, but you didn't go, oh, what? I thought you were a man, or you didn't challenge my manhood or call me out, which is going to trigger fight or flight from my end. I'm either going to walk away from the conversation or be like, well, hang on, we're not going somewhere good. But instead you said, yeah, no worries. Hey, if I were to tell you though that 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗃 is going to be there, would that change anything? Oh, interest peaked, curiosity peaked. I don't lose face by changing positions because you just presented like a massive carrot. How could I say no to that? So I don't lose face. It's easy for me to change my position. New information, don't lose face. Yeah, I'm all about it. Appealing, I'm all about it. So I think a lot of people don't know how to do that.
No, a lot of people can't because I think it's something that has to be felt. So even an example with regards to, we were talking about it before with cold calling. If someone calls, you cold call someone, very little chance that you're going to get it perfect the first time. Now it can happen, obviously, if you're good at it.
Yeah.
But most people are going to be like, no, we're not interested. Or, no, so-and-so handles this. Be like, amazing. Honestly, I thought that might be the case. But if I were to have a conversation with them about this, do you think that would be something? Or what do you think? You're flowing with it. You accept and then continue.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And you can throw in little, just so you know, or by the way, or before you go, I just want to let you know, like you throw in that little kind of quip almost. And often that can be, okay, you got me there. I told the story. Did I tell the story in this podcast in recent times when I bought the 2 bottles of whiskey at the airport on the way back from LA the other week?
No.
So I recently, like last 3 years, got into Japanese whiskey. I'm not a big drinker, but if I drink, it's now Japanese whiskey. Got introduced to it by a friend here, and have come to love it. To the point I've got like 20 bottles now, and it'll take me 20 years to drink 20 bottles. I'll have 40 bottles by this time next year. I'm becoming a collector. Make of that what you will. Anyway, so I can't get it in Guatemala, but I can get it at LAX airport. When I was flying back from Peters a month ago now, I always go to the same duty free because there's only one that has it. And I went there, and on walking in, it's always chill. This place is always chill. There's no salespeople on the sales floor. You just do your thing. I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, I got ambushed. It was like a caricature. This salesperson jumped out from behind the shelf, was in my face, and look, he was friendly and nice, but he was in my face. He was in my personal space, and I wasn't expecting it either. And he's trying to sell me. And I just sort of said, listen, no, I know what I'm looking for. I'm okay, thanks. And he backed off. And I think he just said, can I just ask what you're looking for? And I'm like, yeah, Japanese whiskey, but I know where it is. He's like, hey, no worries. And I was kind of annoyed by him because he got in my face. I didn't like it. But he wasn't an unlikable character. He had kind of nice energy, but he was just in my face. Didn't read the room. Anyway, I'm looking at the bottles I normally buy, which are about $90 US. And I was going to buy 2 of those. I'd already decided before walking in. And he just comes up behind me again and says, they're really good, those ones too, the $150 ones. And I was like, yeah, I said, yeah, I'm fine. He goes, no worries. Just so you know, I'm happy to give you a tasting if you want one. And then he walked away. But it was just so you know. Anyway, I was still angry with the guy for getting in my space. I walked out. I left. I was like, I was going to come back, but I'm like, I want to come back when he's not around. And when I walked back 10 minutes later, he did it again. He jumped out again at me. But he did, and then he recognized me. Before I had a chance to tell him off, he recognized me. He goes, oh, you again. Are you here to try that amazing Japanese whiskey? And I'm like, I actually am. And he'd gotten me. But I bought the 2 bottles of $150 whiskey. And we became friends. He spoke Portuguese and Spanish, and we ended up speaking both languages, and we were fine. Here's my point, though. He got me with just so you know. Like, I'm like, get away from me, get away from me, get away from me. Don't want to interact with you. But oh, yeah, no problems. I'm leaving. Just so you know, though, which is kind of like, by the way, he got me with that. He hooked me on that. And when I recalibrated 5-10 minutes later, I was 3/4 of the way towards being a sale. So that's a powerful mechanism. If it's sort of not going your way and they're kind of ushering you out the door, metaphorically or literally, you can be, hey, listen, I'm going to leave you in peace. Just one more thing before I go. Or just let me leave you with one last thing. Or just so you know. And often, hang on, don't go. What was that? Conversation just began. So it's a nice little trick. Well, it's not really a trick. It's a tactic. It can often pique their curiosity. And they then ask for more. And on asking for more, the conversation comes alive. And now something's happening.
So one thing in that vein that I like to do. So if I have cold called someone, or rang them out of the blue, I don't linger on the phone. I'm not the kind of person that's going to stay on the phone just for the sake of it.
Well, you're not a chit guy either. You're pretty.
It depends who I'm with. But for me, there's nothing more frustrating than when someone cold calls you and they just don't shut up. So
sure.
For me, it's just have a quick conversation, get the thing that I need, and say, look, amazing. Don't need to take up any more of your time. Actually, just quickly before I go, can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
And they've already relaxed. They're like, the call's almost over. Same thing. And then that's the question that I really needed to ask, but
Yes.
also that's the question that might turn, 3, maybe 4-minute conversation. I like to keep them really short. Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're telling me everything on that last question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you let them know that you're going to let them go. No worries. You're respecting their time. They're like, oh, sweet. This guy gets it.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
it's just like, quick question. Can I ask before I go? And they're always like, yeah, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Their defenses are down by that stage. So you're able to actually go to a space that you can't go to when they're in I'm dealing with a salesperson mode. So you got like a little window. Do you remember when you and I used to sell fitness memberships together back in the day? I mean, I know
you remember that.
Do you remember what our tactic was for getting the PIF at the very, very, very end? So you and I, for our viewers, we used to sell by memory, I think it was like $19.90 per fortnight, which is 2 weeks. So I don't think fortnight's used in all countries. So basically $10 a week, but
yep.
With a marketing style price, so it was under $10. It was $10 a week over a 2-year period. So that obviously came in at over $1,000. And you and I would close them on, when we did the price presentation on the back of the sheet of paper, we'd close them on the $20, $10 a week paid fortnightly, $20 a fortnight over 24 months. We'd close them on that and we'd get up and walk away. Do you remember what we used to do to turn it into a PIF?
No.
So we didn't present the PIF. We had a PIF. The PIF by memory was like $9.90, which obviously, gave a saving of a couple $100. So what we used to do was we would close them on the PIF, and we would be seated down with them. And our desk, the reception desk was like 3 meters away or 4 meters away. We'd get up to go to reception to get the paperwork. And so we've closed them. They said yes to the payment plan, $20 a fortnight. No worries, great. Let me go and grab the paperwork. We'd get up to get the paperwork, take one step, and they go, oh, actually, by the way. And then we'd come back and half sit down and say, you're probably going to say no to this, but we have an option where if you want to do it in one and done, you can actually save even more. Did you want to see it, or should I just go and get the paperwork? Maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 8 would go, yeah. And we'd upgrade it to a PIF. They actually paid us less overall, but we got all the money today, of course, and we used to get a higher commission for that. So we wanted a PIF. But we did the PIF close on by the way. Now, if there was any resistance at that point, I would just say, you know what, forget about it. Let me just go get that paperwork, because I didn't want to lose the sale. But it was a by the way upgrade.
I would do it. So when I'm on just like a coaching call or whatever it is, I do it way later. So get them to buy in, get them excited. Yep, we're going to do it. Grab the credit card details. And just before I click process, I just say, hang on, just quickly. There is an option, or if I were to tell you there was an option where you could pay up front, but it saves you, $200, $300, $400 over the term. Is that something that you want to hear about, or you just want to stay with this?
Yes.
Or do you want to stay with this, or do you want to hear about that? Depending on the kind of person they were. And then some people will be like, oh, no, I can't do up front. You're like, sweet, press process. But if they say, well, how much is it? What is it? It saves, you walk them through it and they're like, oh, actually, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you want to do that?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. I've already got the card details, and perfect. That went through.
Yeah. It's the same psychology. It's like, but I call it by the way. It's just by the waying them, I know you know this show, but Columbo, the old show Columbo.
I knew you'd talk about Columbo.
Yeah.
Just one more thing.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the best example. If you just type in Columbo, just one more thing, or just one more question. That was that famous detective show in the 70s, maybe 60s, where he'd be a bumbling fool and would completely disarm them. He wasn't stupid, but he played the fool. And he would always ask his real question, the one that unlocked the murder case, at the end as he was leaving. He'd often forget something and come back 30 seconds later and knock on the door. I left my umbrella in there. Oh, by the way, while I'm here, real question, unlocks the murder case. So that's a good example of what we're talking about. Yeah, so it's a powerful tactic, So if you get initial resistance, it's one of many tactics you can do to not trigger fight or flight, but to pique the curiosity, to get them to reconsider, reimagine, take in new information. And on the back of that, things may just open up. And that's something that an ordinary salesperson probably can't do, or probably chooses to try and bulldoze through in place of that, or maybe use some other tactics that we wouldn't agree with, passive aggressivity or shaming, or, I thought you said you were serious, like stuff like that. but we both find that very, very, very useful.
Mm.
Very applicable in real life as well. Like this applies to real life situations too, like real business negotiations or dealings, even interactions with friends, family, where you haven't found agreement yet for whatever reason. It can often change things.
Mm. But if you compare those two approaches, bull at a gate as opposed to flowing with it,
Yep.
there are niche areas where the bull at the gate will work.
Yes.
But everywhere, flowing with it and moving with the person works, because you can't go out into the real world or in big business deals and then try and just objection handle someone and force them through. Anyone that is worth their salt and anyone that is in a position whereby they can kind of grow, as in you need something from them, they're
Yes.
probably going to be a lot more experienced, and they'll look at you and be like, get out.
Yeah, that doesn't work here. Yeah, I actually had this conversation on our coaching call today. There are certain sales dynamics where the bull in a china shop, bludgeon them into submission approach does work. Like sometimes some sort of door knockers, sometimes when you see charity people in the streets shaking cans, trying to get you to sign up to some sort of charity thing, they got like a really small window. They're going to try and pressure you or shame you into joining, and they got like a 5-second window to do it. You might go to a shopping mall and they're selling Dead Sea products, and they're basically chasing you halfway down the aisle to get you to put it on your face and then try it. And it can work in those scenarios. But I don't know that anyone that pays any attention to us aspires to do that sort of selling. I mean, that might have been part of their early stage journey, while you're cutting your teeth and moving up through the ranks. I don't know that anybody wants a career doing that sort of selling if they're watching and listening to us. And the higher up you go, obviously the higher caliber of person you're going to be dealing with, the more savvy, the more aware, the higher self-esteem, they're going to see that coming a mile away, and they're rightly so either going to call you out and ridicule, mock you, walk away, or attack you, and you deserve three of those. Whereas on the other side of the coin, working with them, reading the room, collaborating, understanding, helping them have powerful realizations, giving them information they didn't have, helping them access parts of their psyche maybe they couldn't get to on their own. Very powerful, very worthy of respect, very collaborative, much better.
I think that also comes back to the topic. I think resistance, people see it as a really bad thing. It's just a natural part of the buying process. You're going to get resistance. And if you... Oh, hang on, bear with me 1 second. If you fear it, then it's just going to be a really bad time for you.
Yeah. And it's also important to understand what is the resistance we're dealing with. I mean, are you saying no because you're clear on what it is and you're clear you don't need or want it? Are you saying no because I've confused you, or you don't believe you want it or need it but don't know? Because there's a difference between believing and knowing. These little distinctions, like if you were to say, oh no, I don't need it, and if I were to say, okay, no problems, it's not for everybody, can I just ask one question though? Is it that you know definitively you don't need it, or is it more that you believe you don't need it based on what you think it is and where you think you're at? Which of the two is closer to the mark? Oh, probably the second. And then I get permission and we unpack it. 3 questions in, you're like, oh my God, I do actually need it. And then I can re-ask you the question on the back of that realization. Do you want to keep exploring this, or would you prefer not to? No, I do. Now you're in the palm of my hands. And we got there not through force. Ultimately, we got there through appealing to your self-interest, working with you and helping you have realizations and discover things and want to keep going on that path and choosing to and being empowered to choose. Like I said, do you want to keep exploring this or do you not? So I'm not pushing my agenda. You're in control here. I mean, I'm asking the question so I have a degree of control, but in your mind, you're in control because you have the ability to say yes or no. And it's worded in a way that you can. It's not a leading question like, should we continue? And you feel a bit awkward if you say no because I'm so enthusiastic and I'm in your face. You might say no. You might say yes out of politeness, but you don't really want to. But if I ask it in a way that it's neutral and you can absolutely say no and it's fine, but you choose to say yes, well, now you're the one choosing this adventure. Yet I'm the one that just opened up the conversation.
That reminds me of a quote that I've heard. So Stephen Bartlett from Diary of a CEO, he likes to quote, I can't even remember who it was. I think it was an heiress or something in the UK, and there was the old Prime Minister and the new Prime Minister, and she had dinner with them back-to-back nights. And she said, with the old Prime Minister, I felt like I'd had dinner with the smartest man in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And with the new Prime Minister, I felt like I'd had dinner with someone who made me feel like the smartest woman in the world.
Yep.
And that's the distinction.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good quote. I haven't heard that one before, but that's a really good quote. Yeah, so resistance needs to be understood as a start point. What sort of resistance in play? Is it movable resistance or reconsiderable resistance, or is it like ironclad lock the door? Like, there's a big distinction, and you shouldn't treat them all the same because they're not the same. And then if you're going to circumnavigate your way around it and open it up, we would both agree that working with them as opposed to bulldozing through them is the much better play.
Good way to go, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
We're in agreement, and I think this is a good spot to finish up.
Good call.
Perfect. See you next week.
Scripted as always. We didn't even know what we were going to talk about until we started talking about it.
Exactly.
All right. See you next week.